Hey guys, Brent Hull Build Show, talking today about energy efficiency, especially with older houses. I want to talk about the history of these old houses, why they don't have insulation, when does HVAC start, and what to do about this old house and making it efficient for today without ruining it. Come join me today in the Build Show. Conventional wisdom today is that you change out your windows, you put spray foam in the walls, you do these things that are the quick flipper kind of things that that's obvious stuff that you should do. And I'm saying that those are the things you should not do. Some of my other more popular videos are on window restoration and on insulating an old house. And so I'm realizing that a lot of you guys are thinking about, you've got an historic house, you're trying to make it energy efficient, you're trying to think about it, okay? And so the windows is a huge one. And if you go to my window video, you'll see all the information about how to restore it. I've got another video on why we restore it. And that's kind of what we'll be talking about today, but also insulation. So how do we think about this box? How do we make it efficient? How do we do it without ruining the historic integrity of it? Well, there's a couple things. And first of all, we have to understand the history. The history is, first of all, you have insulation, okay? Insulation. We don't really have insulation in houses until after World War II. You'll see mineral wool and some of these other things advertised in the 1920s, 1930s, but really insulation as a solution is not really something that's practiced until after World War II. Even into the 50s and 60s. Think about our John Staub house, the 1928 period revival house. So in 28, they were thinking about, that was done by a very, high name architect. It was very important. Money certainly wasn't the problem. And yet they had put that Celotex kind of fiber-ish board as an insulator, right? And so really thinking about insulation doesn't happen until after World War II. The other thing that doesn't happen is modern HVAC. Heaters in houses, fireplaces, floor heaters, very popular. We're in Texas. Those were very popular in houses, going back to the early 1900s. But HVAC and heating and cooling doesn't really happen until, again, after World War II, 1950, 1960. In fact, one of the reasons the South grows, Florida, Texas, all these states are growing, is because HVAC can now make houses cool and comfortable. So realize that most houses before 1940, never had air conditioning and most likely didn't have insulation. So what do? What's the best bang for your buck? The first is don't replace the windows, okay? Again, don't replace the windows. And let me show you why real quick. In a typical bungalow house, a 1920s, 1930 house has 20 to 30 windows in that house, okay? A lot of windows. Now, they got 20 windows in a house, and you're gonna buy a new production window. It's gonna cost $1,500 to $2,000. Let's just, for my math, let's just say it's $2,000 by the time it's installed. Now we're at $40,000 to replace the windows in your house. The problem is that to expect to find an energy bill savings to overcome that $40K that you put into the new windows and doors, you're not gonna see that money back. So as far as bang for the buck, replacing your windows with energy efficient windows, they say that the repayment time is 40 to 120 years. And the problem is that many of these new replacement windows, if you watch my videos, are only gonna last 20 or 30 years. So you can't even get to the 80, 90, 100 years that you're gonna need in order to get the payment back. So the energy that it costs to heat and cool this house, let's say your energy bill every month is $100. Don't you wish, right? Of that $100, only about $40 of that thing is going to heating and cooling. Again, another reason why this window replacement doesn't work is because of your $100 energy bill, only $40 of that thing is affected by the windows and door changes. And so again, that's the reason the math doesn't get there. One of the other concepts, guys, that I'm trying to explain, and I got a little pushback in the other videos, is that the idea of it's an historic house, let's not ruin it, okay? I come from the background in preservation. My bias is towards keeping the historic integrity. You can go in there, gut the whole thing, fill it up with foam, do all those things, be super energy efficient, you've lost all the charm, okay? And you've made it efficient, but I think people like old houses because they're beautiful, right? There's great craftsmanship, the quality of materials is really high. So realize that I am not, speaking as a Matt or Jake or Steve trying to make this thing have a blower door score of 0.6, right? This is not going to be a passive house. And so I am assuming that the energy efficiency isn't as important as the historic integrity, okay? So my bias. Number two, the biggest bang for your buck is in insulation. Now, I know in my other videos I was talking about not insulating things, and I want to be clear, I'm an insulator fan, right? I think insulating is really important, and I think you should insulate it. In fact, I think the biggest bang for your buck is insulation. I lived in the 1940s house. One of our first houses, a little colonial revival house. Our air conditioner, in that time, kicked on at about, 9 in the morning during the summer and didn't kick off like 2 in the morning because, by the time the temperature's gone, it was running all the time. There was no insulation. I blew cellulose insulation into that attic, and I literally came home when the guys were in the attic blowing cellulose into the ceiling joist. A cold wave hit me when I opened the door. I mean, the value of insulation, especially something like cellulose or rock wool or mineral wool, is also a vapor barrier, right? I am an insulator fan, and I think that you need to be insulating your house. The challenge on that historic house was I had a historic fabric on the inside and the outside of that house, and that's why I was saying maybe we don't insulate. And so, just to be really clear, insulation is your biggest bang for your dollar. I don't want you to foam your house, okay? Because that hides water. It creates all kinds of problems from a historic house. I think a cellulose or a rock wool is your best bet, and I want to encourage you to do that. So that's number two. Please insulate. Okay, and then number three is I would try to control your crawl space, okay? And this is something that we're doing is because the ground's coming across here, right? And really, most of these houses have a pier and beam foundation, so we've got a crawl space underneath here. Now, what we've been doing on most of our houses now for about the last 10 years is encapsulating the floor space because a lot of cold air, a lot of vapor, a lot of moisture is coming up from the ground. We have a high water table here, and there are places where water is actually running underneath these houses, and trying to control that makes a lot of sense. If you can put a vapor barrier, plastic or something down on the inside of your basement, and that means cutting around the piers, that means doing these things, but we've got subs that are now doing it for us where we're laying down plastic on the floor, trying to make it more energy efficient, trying to control that vapor and that moisture that's coming up underneath there. And then if you wanted to, insulate your floor space with a rock wool or a cellulose, rock wool's better because it'll sit up under that, under those joists hanging upside down. That is a great way to make your house more energy efficient. One of the things to realize is that, and this has been shown in studies, Department of Energy studies and stuff on old houses, is that the majority of the energy loss happens out walls and ceilings. It doesn't happen out windows, okay? So just realize as we're looking at this box, majority of your energy loss, because we don't have insulation, is going through your ceiling, okay, or out your walls. Now, think about that. If this is let's say it's a 2,000 square foot house, okay? So we've got a 2,000 square foot house, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 windows, okay? This is just my example. And those windows are 3 by 5, okay? So we got 3 by 5, which is 15 square feet times 12, be 150, 180 square feet, okay? You got a 2,000 square foot house. That means your ceiling is 2,000 square feet. So we got 2,000 square feet of ceiling, got 180 square feet of windows. You got 2,000 square feet of floor. Okay, so let's just say it's 40 by 50, okay? And these are rough numbers, right? Got 5,620 square feet of surface area, okay? Now, of that, let's just say there's more windows than that. Let's say there's, 500 square feet of window space, right? That's less than 10% of this total, okay? Realize when I'm talking about some of these solutions, I'm trying to manage the largest surface areas. If you put insulation in your attic, right, just in your ceiling joists, you've covered, 2,000 square feet of that area. A huge, large footprint of your house is taken care of when you're doing that. The last thing would be, I would say, upgrade your HVAC unit. Because if your HVAC unit is 10 or 15 or even older years old, the energy efficiency of these units have grown so much that, the 12 SEER now is an 18 SEER, and you have a much more energy efficient HVAC unit trying to heat and cool this house. Okay, guys, I hope that helps. Ways to think about an old house, how to keep it energy efficient. Don't throw out your windows. It's a waste of money. Huge bang for your buck in insulation. It's got to be the right insulation, something like rock wool or cellulose, something that's going to allow the house to breathe, and good decisions so that you can make this historic house last for a really long time. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, Hull Millwork Hull Homes. We've got a new podcast called Passion for Craft. I'd love you guys to check that out. You can go to passionforcraft.com and learn more about that. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. I'm Brent Hull. Thanks for watching.